A lot of you have been asking me about the installation of this LED display in my mask. It's actually really easy, and today I'll be showing you how it's done. This project will require the Chemion Glasses. Now this is probably the best option on the market right now because everything's self-contained and you don't really even need to buy the battery compartments if you want to install this into a paintball mask or some sort of other costume. The other thing is that it's Bluetooth compatible with the app, and so you need a smartphone or Android. It also works with Apple, and you go ahead and download the app, Chemion, and you can see that there's a little link button up here. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this thing works before we disassemble it. And you can see that it's displaying this specific 4-digit code, D17E. So we're going to go ahead and you can see that it's already found it. We're going to go ahead and link that. And now the phone is paired with the glasses. That's a really cool feature because it allows you to keep your glasses safe from anyone else who wants to tamper with it. It has to be in this search mode. So I guess if someone was waiting around, they could connect to it, but it's not going to allow anyone to connect unless it's in this mode when you first turn it on. So you can see another cool effect is this equalizer. So as I'm talking, it'll actually display the voice fluctuation. I thought that was a really neat effect. And if you want to go and create your own different display, you can go into the creator, and so you're seeing how it's copying what I have on the screen. So we're just going to go back here, and we don't want to save that because that's just junk. And then there's also the ability to go and there's like a little network that you can connect via Facebook, and it will link you with a bunch of other creators who have different things for you to check out. So another thing is the thermal lens. This is what I'm going to be installing the electronics into. The best thing about this is that it's 2 layers, so you actually would be sliding the board in between the 2 layers, and then you want to rewire everything back into the mask so that it's a nice compact package. So another thing that I'll show you is how I reuse the battery compartments from the original Chemion glasses and just install them into the mask. It's really easy. You might be able to do it depending on the mask that you're using. I'll take you step by step how I did this. I think this display is really awesome. It definitely adds a unique character and vibe to the mask, and I plan on improving it. At the same time, my friend is actually working on his own helmet by adding all sorts of badass upgrades. He's even planning on laminating it with Kevlar to make it bulletproof. So go check out the Superhero Armory and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all his latest creations.
I'm Captain Intrigue. In this episode, I'll be building a superhero helmet with night vision, super hearing, and voice changing capabilities.
So here's a sneak peek at the helmet. These are the night vision goggles that I built in a previous episode. This is the microphone for the voice changer. And these are my homemade super hearing headphones, which will be on both sides.
So now I'll show you step by step how to remove the electronics portion from the glasses. It's really not difficult. You just have to make sure you're patient and you don't want to accidentally strip the screws because then you're kind of literally screwed at that point. There is one right here. Kind of goes in at an angle. And then there's another one here on the side. Now you might want to hold on to these if you decide you want to reassemble this, but for me, I'm not too worried about it. Then you're going to have these 2 little clips here. That's kind of just holding this thing in place. Now, you might need a small screwdriver to sort of pry that apart. You might actually damage the plastic, but I don't plan on reassembling this thing. So this is kind of like your point of no return. So you can see those really thin cables in there. That doesn't really matter because you're not going to be connecting that. That's just kind of annoying. We're going to be getting some stronger wires, just salvaging them from a other adapter that you can just probably find in your house. But you can see those two wires there. You kind of want to just slide it forward and then turn. All right. That is probably the most annoying part. I don't know why they did it like that. So now you can see how the battery compartment is actually already built into the glasses. This is actually really neat. And you just kind of push this backward, and there you go. You may want to desolder this at this point. So you can see how the positive and negative terminals are labeled, and even if it wasn't, you know that red is positive, black is negative. I'm going to go ahead and use our soldering iron just to detach those. So just go ahead and heat that up until it sort of liquefies, and on the other side as well. And there you go. Now, in hindsight, I should have removed the battery before doing that. Now we're going to make sure that we first remove the battery, and then just do the same. You're going to want to angle this, remember. Make sure that you have enough downward pressure so that you don't strip the screw. Okay. You may want to use the flathead screwdriver to sort of pry this. I mean, this is by far the most annoying part of the entire build. Yeah, I know it looks really ugly, but it's just how it's got to be. And then we're going to just desolder these two wires. So go ahead and just lift this up here. This is pretty much just held in with friction. First would stick this little hook in there and then press this down. So in order to open this, you just pull up while you're sort of pulling this way. So this side up while you push, and then you have the wire compartment with a battery just right there. And then we're going to go ahead and just desolder this. And like I said, we're not going to be using these little ribbon cables because they are work of the devil. It's just the most inconvenient thing, and if that would even just break by making a crease, like if you were to bend that, and it wouldn't work. Like, they're the most annoying thing. The next part is working with removal of the actual display. So this is where you probably get nervous, but I promise you it's not that big of a deal. So there is a screw here. One right on the nose plate here, which may or may not actually be necessary to remove. I don't know, because it's just this little piece of like rubber here. And then there's another two right here. Okay. And then now that we've already disassembled the batteries, it really doesn't matter. You can remove these. So there's two more screws on the top and bottom of the little hinge. You'll notice these ones are a little bit longer than the other screws. And then that just kind of gets removed. Yeah, just be careful with these screws. You don't want to strip anything. Although these ones aren't as important because it just holds the hinge together. Alright, so let's clear this out. You can see how thin those wires are. This is why it gets a little bit annoying. But like I said, these don't matter because you're going to be soldering a much stronger connection to the board, and you don't need to worry about any sort of flexion in the actual piece. Everything is pretty much housed in between these two pieces. Alright, so that's one piece, and you can see that's actually what is holding this thing in place. And there's a screw there and a screw there. Alright, so now we have some gloves on, and let me go ahead and
remove the display. Remember, you want to be very careful at this point. And you can see how it's just already lifting right off of the platform, and the wires just kind of comes out right there. And the other one right here. Again, make sure that you're very careful of this part. You don't want to slip and then stab and scratch any of the LEDs. So just be very gentle, no big deal. And there is your board. We'll just go ahead and rest it on that piece right there. Now, if you want to check out and see if it still works, we can go ahead and solder the electronics back on. So make sure that you remove the battery first. I really don't care about connecting it back to this, so I'm going to now remove the actual connections. You can see the positive and the negative still on there. The positive is at the top, the negative's on the bottom. It even says bat plus, bat negative. So really, really simple. All right, and desolder this. To desolder something, you just need a soldering iron. You do basically lay it on there until it looks like it gets liquefied, and you can tell it'll just sink right in. Okay, and then you just want to do it to the other side while it's still sort of molten. And I'll go ahead and just kind of show you. Now notice that these are both still separated. You don't want to accidentally have the solder transfer over onto the positive side, otherwise it's not going to work. So now that we have the board removed and we still have our two battery connections, we're going to go and resolder this to the board. You're going to have to decide how long you want the extensions to be, and you may even want to create your own extensions with a little bit of a thicker wire or create a better soldering joint here. So you just go ahead and heat up that solder, and it connects right to the board. And then with this wire, same thing. Heat up the solder on the actual piece of wire, and then just dab it onto the board. Same with this one. Now this soldering board is at 400 degrees, so it heats up pretty quickly. All right, so I guess this is the moment of truth to see if actually it still works. All right. And it does still work. Let's see if we still have a good connection via Bluetooth. And we'll go ahead and, yep, found it, link. And then we'll go into the equalizer just as a test. You can see that it's still working. So here is the thermal lens, this piece of plastic. Now this is the layer that allows you to be protected from your lenses fogging up. There's an air layer in between. Use a hair dryer just to very lightly heat up the foam layer, and you can actually peel back the adhesive so that you can access the inner portion where you're going to lay the actual board. You can see the wires. This is actually the old battery cap. If you heat this up with a hair dryer, it will allow you to sort of stretch it almost like saran wrap over top of this, and then you just use an X-Acto knife to cut the excess, and that looks pretty nice, I'd say. And then it fits just right back on this portion here, and I used some Velcro pieces just to attach that. So that's kind of hidden there, and it works out pretty nice. Right there inside of the mask, it's connecting, and it goes back to the two terminals on the actual board. I'd say that's about 8 inches of extra wire. Maybe you want to go 9 just in case
you need a little bit of excess, but it's going from the face portion over, up. You can see this little kind of lip, or I don't even know what you want to call it, and it just kind of sat there. So if there was any extra tension, it had a little bit of give on the actual wires, so you don't tear any of the wires out. And then that goes to this portion right in the front. Same with the other side. You can see it goes from those two terminals. You have your positive and negative, and then it goes through this little hole right here, and then back over and around and to this other side with the battery connection. The last thing that was a little bit of a challenge was trying to connect the actual on-off switch. So you're gonna have to make something like this. So you're gonna need one of these small momentary switches, and then I attached the positive and negative. I also added some heat shrink, and then I heated it up with a lighter, and then I crimped it using a pair of pliers. This is some 18 gauge wire. This has actually been salvaged from an old wall adapter, so I'm sure you have lots of these hanging around your house. If you don't use them, or maybe you have them just like stored somewhere, you can just cut that wire. This actually works just as well. Or you can buy the 18 gauge wire, use that for the majority, and also some heat shrink tubing just to make sure that everything was uniform. And you can never go wrong with heat shrink tubing. You can always remove it. It's just whenever you don't have it and you already did the solder connection, it's like your only other option is electrical tape. The two pieces together and then combining it with another large piece. To connect this, it's a little bit difficult to show you in the actual mask, so I'm going to show you on the one that we just took apart. You can see that on both sides of the actual terminal that there is a little piece here. Now, all that is just a connection on both sides. When you press down this button, you get voltage that turns on the circuit. So all you need to do is connect a wire to the top and bottom portion right there. I don't see any other way to turn it on while it's inside of the actual mask, the thermal lens. But it's honestly not very difficult, and I can try and show you where I've done it on mine. So you can see that there is a wire attached here and here, and then that's going back, threading through this portion, and then it's just going to connect to the actual button here. And then you can see when you hold that in, the display goes on. And when you hold it again, it turns off. So the wires are actually traveling through this little groove here. There's like a little hole. I don't know if that's easy to see. I'll try and focus on that, but there's a hole right here, and the rest just goes into this little pocket. Now, I've already explained that. The part that you're probably wondering is, where does the wire go? So right here, you can see it's connected to the board. It's going back into the mask and then back through that hole that I just showed you. It's on both sides. Same thing here with the wires going back across, kind of like sunglasses almost. It's going over the ear and right back there. Okay? And then there is this wire that just goes into this hole and just lays right on top of there, and you can just jam it into that little groove. And to close this thing up, you just would push these pieces back in, and this thing's pretty durable, and that's it. Boom. Beautiful. So I was gonna go like full throttle wrench and add like all the weird punky spikes and have this thing, but it just ended up looking like crap. I mean, that's not the right size. Then I tried making like a stencil and adding like this type of thing to it,
it just did not work. There's not enough adhesion. And then plus, whenever you add the spikes to this sort of foam with the sticky adhesive back, it pulls away and creates like a little crater there, and it just would not actually stick after a decent amount of time. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna make this tutorial for someone to try it out if it's not going to be a solid project in the end. So unfortunately, I didn't really get the full wrench look, but that was never the intent to begin with. I just wanted a cool mask, and a lot of people were thinking that this was wrench. And I think that this is a really good tutorial if you want to create a wrench mask. I don't think anyone's going to stop once they don't find the right YouTube tutorial if they're really interested in creating this cosplay character or adding this effect to their favorite mask. So I think that for what it's worth, this tutorial is helpful, or it should be. And if you have any questions, you should always just reach out, ask me via Instagram or Facebook or email, whatever. It's really not a big deal, and I like that you are engaging and that you're interested in what I'm teaching you. So that's definitely a motivator. Also, when people subscribe and like, that's also a huge motivation to continue making videos. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and you're able to apply this to whichever project you like. As always, take it easy.
We'll be right back.